AI is like anything, a tool to make your life better, efficient, faster, but it's not a substitute for you to not develop human interaction skills, communication skills, leadership skills, because ultimately any business is a community of people. And to live in a community, you need to interact.
Don't conduct your analysis in isolation because data is so incredibly powerful.
Not defending just the tribe, but defending the organization.
Those creative people that you really want to keep empowered, keep excited, keep motivated, keep thinking.
A good experience pays dividends down the line.
Stereotypes tend to break down in proximity.
Welcome to We're Only Human, a podcast about human resources, business, technology, and the workplace. My name is Ben Eubanks, your host, and I'm so glad you're here.
Hey everyone, it's Ben Eubanks, host of We're Only Human. I'm so glad you're here with us. I'm looking forward to a fun conversation today. We're going to dive into learning, mindsets, how to support the people in our organization that are trying to grow and develop their skills, all those conversations. And we have Nikhil of TalentLMS here with us today to talk about these topics and some of the data their team's been collecting. I'm sure I'll throw some data points of our own in there from Lighthouse as well, just to make it a rich conversation. So Nikhil, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Ben, and excited to be on this podcast.
Absolutely. So before we get into some of the fun stuff I teach the audience there, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
So I am the CEO of Epignosis, which is the parent company of TalentLMS. And Epignosis, really our mission is to unlock learning technologies for small and medium-sized businesses around the world.
And something fun you were telling me before we started recording a moment ago is that you've lived in how many states across the U.S.?
I've lived across 10 states in the U.S. and 10 countries around the world.
10 countries and 10 states. Okay, so you've got, what's next? We don't have 10 planets, so we'll have to figure out how to get you another 10 of something else before you're all said and done. Okay, so we see in some of the data we collect at Lighthouse, we survey learners, and we see in the research that some of the challenges around learning aren't necessarily around the training or the content, the courses they have access to. The challenges sometimes are around their mindset, their perspective on things, those more culture and soft things that are harder to put your arms around sometimes. What are you seeing as you're working with different customers at TalentLMS and some of the prospects you're talking to as well?
Yes, it's a great question to start with. And what we do this kind of survey every year, and we publish a lot of data around what we call the TLMS growth mindset. And one of the most important learning we've had is that 50% or more than 50% employee actually would leave a job for another opportunity which offers them an opportunity to grow. And so 1 out of 2 employees is actually wanting to stay with the company or leave the company purely based on their ability to grow. The challenge becomes is what is the definition of growth, right? Because a lot of employees want to grow, but somehow either don't have the time or don't have the awareness of what does it mean to have that growth mindset. And that's where I think product and services like ours, where we help small, medium-sized businesses to do skills assessment of the employees. So that way there's a current baseline of where do you stand versus what the company needs, and where do you stand versus what the world and the industry is demanding. And by doing that skill gap analysis and then recommending what skills to improve and what courses to take goes a long way, and then taking employees from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Another interesting data point is also that a lot of people who are in fixed mindset actually don't think they're in the fixed mindset. Everybody tends to believe we're all in the growth mindset. And the difference is not that it's really a mindset issue. It's more about you don't know what you don't know. And through this skills assessment and through this baselining of what the company needs and what the market needs, you build a common understanding that here's what I have, here's what I need, and now you go and solve it through our products, which really ultimately help you reskill, upskill, and acquire both soft and hard skills.
So let's say someone out there listening to this conversation and they're saying, I completely agree with you, Nikhil. My people think they have a growth mindset and it is very fixed. You talked about some of the things there, I think, tactically they could do to help them change that, whether it's helping them see where their skills are and what that path looks like for what's next potentially. Any advice for those leaders that would like to try to transition their people from that very fixed mindset to a growth mindset, as they're trying to make that change for their own workforce, anything that you might suggest or recommend that could help them to start transitioning them or to give them that bigger picture?
I think it starts with the leadership. And as a leadership team, if you embrace failure and you encourage embracing uncertainty, because any journey from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset requires you to try new things, which also by definition will mean you'll fail a lot more than you'll succeed, which also means you're going from a high degree of certainty to a high degree of uncertainty, right? And as leadership, as management, and as any culture of the company, right? If you are able to create an environment where you're encouraging, you're taking risk, you're encouraging failure, or in fact, even celebrating failure, and you're encouraging embracing more uncertainty, you will break down those barriers, right? Because what happens is a lot of times as individuals, as we grow up, we're designed to get boxed into doing only things where we're going to get 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. And we're not going to go anything where 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 10. And if you flip that environment and create that culture where it's actually the other way around, that you're encouraging people. For example, as a company, you say every year you're going to have 20% new innovation in your product, or you have 20% new skills in your team, or you're going to do 20% new processes in your department. You're declaring a metric, but you're also giving them that license to experiment and fail, because to get to that 20%, you may have to try 10, 15 things, and your success rate is 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10, but you're giving them that kind of empowerment.
Okay. I really like that. Getting them comfortable with those things. And that can't just be a, hey, go do that from a leadership perspective, but they need to live that out themselves. They need to be showing that they're okay with, hey, I tried this thing, it didn't work out. Here's the lessons I learned, so that others see that failure doesn't have to be fatal. There was a great book years ago written by a gentleman named Jia Zhang, and I was trying to get funding for his company. He got rejected and it crushed him. And so he went on this 100-day journey to get rejected every day by somebody so that he could overcome that fear of it, because he realized when someone says no, it's maybe not today, maybe not now. It's not always a no forever. And even when it is a no, it's not no, you have no value to the world. It's just no to this question. And so he went out asking all these things, some of them silly and wacky and off the wall, just to practice that. And as you said, we've been conditioned to narrow in to only only commit to, only focus on those things that we do pretty well, so that we are getting the meets expectations, the exceeds expectations on our performance reviews. And that may actually be limiting us long-term for the value we can get from our people if we're not helping them see that in a bigger way. That's really incredible. Okay. So
yeah, now that you also mentioned, there's another book called Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. Mm-hmm. It's a great book on fixed versus growth. And she takes us back to parenting. We talked about, I have 4 daughters and I got 2 children, and talks about, as parents, when your child achieves something or comes first in the class or top of a sports event, what do you tell them, right? If you tell them, I'm so proud of you because you came first, you're creating a fixed mindset. If you tell them, I'm so proud because you put in the process, you put in the hard work, and I'm proud of that, you're creating a growth mindset, because in the first instance, you are rewarding the outcome, which is you're setting them up for future opportunities where they'll only go where they can come at the top of the class. Versus the second process, you're encouraging the effort, the process, and what you're putting into getting towards the outcome. The outcome may be what it is, but you're embracing them and putting them towards, go, take the risk, put the process, and the outcome will be the outcome, right? Doing the analogy in the corporate environment, like rewards and recognition needs to be not on just the outcome, but the process and the whole effort the employees will put in.
Sharing that example on the parenting side, I'm thinking about learning, the parallels in that. And learning can either be this process of perfection, which none of us are ever going to be there, or it's a process of discovery and refinement. And I didn't even know I had this talent because I've never been exposed to that before. And I get to explore that new skill or pursue a new path or just hone something because I'm genuinely curious about it, even if it's not, I'm never going to commit myself to this path and go to the furthest extent. But I want to explore that because that's those sorts of areas. We could get into the book battle over here, sharing some different ones. I've got a couple that are come to mind. So I've shared on that one, but there's some really good input out there for anyone listening in that wants to go deeper. Mindset was one that he just shared. So one of the other things in your research that I thought was intriguing worrisome. I'm not sure what word I'll put on that yet, but it showed that employees feel better about AI than their own manager in some cases when it comes to their learning. Would you talk about that, what the finding was, and what that means to our audience out there that are in the HR, talent, and learning space?
AI is here to stay, and it's obviously a big enabler as well as a disruptor, right, in everyday life. So I genuinely believe it's an invaluable resource for having like a 24/7 companion when you are trying to either explore something, research something, or automate something. The reliance and the risk of AI, we have to embrace AI, and it's here to stay, and it's going to make life much different in many ways, much better in many ways, but also we call it ethical AI usage is going to be important. But what AI does not do and will never replace is soft skilling, right? Ultimately, every business is about humans. You got customers, you got employees, you got shareholders. And while AI is going to automate some jobs, make some jobs go away, but it also creates new jobs. What it does not do and will never do is teach you how to interact with humans. And I think that's where I would call it not the risk, but the opportunity for leadership and management, especially for Gen Z employees who are really growing up on AI, to be able to mentor them through that. AI is like anything, a tool to make your life better, efficient, faster, but it's not a substitute for you to not develop human interaction skills, communication skills, leadership skills, because ultimately any business is a community of people. And to live in a community, you need to interact, you need to communicate, you have to engage, you have to build alignment, you have to build up motivation, inspiration, and so on. And so I think the fact that AI can substitute humans is anything but far from the truth. What AI can do is make the life better, make it more automated, make it more faster. But we have to all continuously develop human leadership skills, the soft skills, because that will never be substituted by any sort of technology. And so that's where my view is always that embrace, learn, adopt. But the basic tenet of any business is human connections, customers, employees, shareholders.
That's one of the things that I've really leaned in on in the last few years is AI has gotten either smarter, or just the perception of it is that it's smarter and more capable. There's still plenty of times where you can see it completely falling apart or doing something that is improper or incorrect. But as that gets smarter and seems to be smarter for the general population out there, they put more faith in it, more trust in it. And at the same time, I come back to exactly what you said. AI is replicating or automating or sharing more of what's already there. It's not creating something new. So the core human skill of creativity, innovation, like as an example, what you were talking about there, is something AI can't do. It seems creative because it gives you answers to questions, but it's just pulling from the human knowledge that's already out there. It's not generating something net new that wasn't there before, like you or I could if we had the time, the inclination to dream up the next best whatever it is, right? So that's one of the things I think about. The other part is, I can't remember who it was. I would love to give them credit, but I can't remember who it was. Recently, I was talking to someone. They said, AI is a sociopath. Okay, explain that. So a sociopath is someone who says something but doesn't feel anything. And AI will say, oh yeah, Nikhil, I care about you. I hope you're doing well today. It doesn't really care. It doesn't actually care. There's no concern behind that at all. It's just repeating a script. And so that's the definition of a sociopath. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that, but that's what it really is. We see this output and we think, oh, there's something there. And it's just words on a screen. It's just a voice come back at us, but it's not really another person. And it's a different interaction, different engagements. And so again, I could go super deep on the AI piece there, but I really like the approach that you led off with. It is an enabler and the disruptor. It's not just one or the other. And if we don't see it as both of those things, we just look at it as one or the other, we're missing the opportunity and the risk that it poses, I believe. Okay. So we've covered some good grounds here around some of the things that are possible with AI, the mindset component, some of those things there. So for the people listening in, we've covered this ground at a high level, some of it theoretical. What should they be doing? What should they be prioritizing? If someone's thinking about learning and what the future holds for their organization, what are some things that they can be doing to make an impact and to really approach that strategically instead of in a more ad hoc manner?
I think I'll just pick up on just the last thread we spoke, right? I think soft skilling if I draw a graph of how technical skills capability perhaps are going up and soft skilling capabilities are going down, right? It's almost moving in the inverse direction. And so I would encourage every organization to start with really focusing deep on soft skilling. And post-COVID, with the AI enablement and disruption, the way we work has fundamentally changed. Previously, everybody will get together in a company and you will have a lot of collaboration, a lot of interaction, and a lot of opportunity to feel each other out humanly, discuss each other out humanly. That's got disrupted because of COVID. What has caused is our ability to communicate effectively, ability to collaborate effectively, ability to innovate at the same speed and scale. So I think investing in soft skilling, investing in training around the new way of work, right? Which is whether you're hybrid, whether you're fully remote, or you're in the office. You have 3 different models now, right? Versus you only had one model. So I think investing in skilling people on, again, how to work together where you have 3 different workflows happening, I think is a great place to start, because ultimately you're bringing everybody on the same page as an employee to say, okay, this is a house and has 3 different rooms. We're all trying to create something magnificent. How do you build that soft skilling? Also, you have multiple generations in the mix now. You Gen Z, Gen X, Millennial, and all of them have different mindset because of the way they've kind of stuff. So I would say start with soft skilling, start in basic communication, productivity, and really collaboration kind of skilling. So that way people understand how that works. And then in terms of technical skills, clearly, as we discussed, and chat GDP and everything around that is a worthwhile investment so that it's used to the benefit of the organization and it's used in both a productive, ethical, and informative, and it moves the organization forward rather than causes a lot of disruption. Because everybody talks about AI, but if you're a small employee sitting in a small company, yeah, you want to learn, but you don't know where to start from. And so having it as a structured part of your LMS today to say, okay, we're going to make it mandatory for everybody to understand what is AI and what does it do and where it can be used, I think, again, forces people to just come on the same page. And then I describe learning in 2 different parts. One is internal, which is like more your compliance related, your onboarding related, things you need to do to make sure your company is doing what it needs to do. And then there is the external one, which is around sales, marketing, customer success, any other kind of technical skills and all that stuff. And so making sure you're keeping that balance between having them upskill, which is all external focused, and internal is more you're doing it for the company to stay in the business for compliance and all reasons. And then lastly, I think mental wellness is a topic which is here to stay. And again, investing, like our platform has content available on mental wellness for employees. What does it mean? How do you make sure you're, as an employee, investing in their mental wellness? Because unlike the past where there's a clear wall between personal and professional life, now that wall is quite thin because of the way we work between hybrid, remote, and on-site. And so it's almost on the employer to make sure we're creating conditions of wellness for our employees. And I think LMS is a great place where you're having them access content and learn about things and absorb things, which is just making them a better and a happy employee.
That's one of the things we found in our research. It might have been about 18 months ago now, as we looked at learning through the lens of well-being and some of the things that were tied in there. And there were some real connections. So 98% of the companies we surveyed said learning has some impact, some connection to well-being, which is pretty wild. Statistically, you never see that kind of response rate to something like that. And so that was indicative of to me that we need to be leaning in as learning leaders, as HR leaders, thinking about how we can be supporting people, whether it's training around it, whether it's giving them a path for growth. So we're helping them feel like they have progress and not just staying stuck and stale and not moving. Whether it's developing our people leaders so they're considerate and thinking about some of the things you're talking about here, really leaning in because they're the tip of the spear. We can say we believe in mental health and supporting our people all we want to from an organizational standpoint, but it's going to either work or fall apart when it gets to that manager level, that relationship they have. So make sure we're developing those leaders. So I love you've emphasized the soft skill piece of that multiple times in the conversation, because that is going to be the answer ultimately to that. That's our edge against the AI. That's also our edge as we're trying to help figure out how to enable our people to do their best work every single day. So if someone wants to know more about the work that you and the team are doing over at TalentLMS, what's the best way for them to connect or learn more?
Yeah, so obviously our website, talentlms.com, is a great place to go. And then we have an active handle on LinkedIn. You can see what we publish there. We have both video content and newsletters around growth getters, which we talk about again on the growth mindset.
Tremendous. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today, for sharing some of your passion on this topic, and for giving all of us some food for thought when it comes to developing our people and making sure that we're creating the best outcomes from a learning perspective within the organization. To everybody else out there, hope you got some good notes, some good ideas as well on this to be thinking about in the coming months. We'll catch you again next time on We're Only Human.
Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I'm honored to have you as a listener. If you enjoyed this episode, please take 10 seconds to rate it at iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, if you know a friend that could benefit from today's conversation, please pass it their way. After all, a rising tide lifts all ships. To see show notes, sponsor information, and our full show archives, visit onlyhumanshow.com.